Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association, brought to you by Leadership Books. I'm Kenneth, Kinney, but friends call me Shark. And like you, I'm a professional speaker, and I love listening to Speakernomics. It's the professional speaker show that will help you thrive and grow a speaking business so you too can change the world, one keynote session, workshop, and speech at a time. And on this episode, we welcome Mike Stickler. Mike is one of the founders of Leadership Books, and he's also the publisher. He's an author, entrepreneur, radio host, and speaker. Mike, welcome to Speakernomics. How are you today?
I am doing great. And it's just so nice to be here in front of this audience, an audience that I know so many of you personally, and I can't wait to share with you just some of the things that how we see publishing. So this will be fun.
Outstanding. Now, to all my speaking friends, what's your story? Not your speaking story, but the one that should be bound together in a book. The one that people want to read about because you have a great idea and expertise that needs to be shared with an audience that wants to read it. But how do you get that book to market? The model has changed. Have you? And before we jump in, make sure to go to speakernomics.com. That's where you can find the tips, insights, and knowledge to help you become a better speaker, build a better business, and get paid to speak. Mike, let's dive in. So let's start off and talk about how do speakers perceive books today and how that model has changed to where we are in 2024 and beyond.
So I also originally came from the speaking world, and the truth is that we speakers are really operating when it comes to their books on a 30-year-old model. And I say that in all empathy because I was there too. Back in 2013, when I've been writing books since 2000. And so I'm 13 years into being an author, and my book was not going anywhere. And I'd put a lot of effort into it. And I recognized that book was really one of the driving points to get me more speaking engagements, to get more attention in not just the social media realm, but also in publicity. And I was frustrated. And the truth is I had the same mentality that so many have today. And that is, if I write a great book and I throw it over the fence to my publisher, they'll throw back bags of money and get me lots of exposure. And that might have been true 30 years ago, but it's never been true in my author journey. The fact is that it takes a lot of effort, and there's three components to make a book successful. And if you avoid any one of those three components, or you do not do one of those three components well, your whole project falls over. I call it the three-legged stool. If you take one leg away from the three-legged stool, the stool falls over. And so we have to change our mindset on how book publishing works today, because it's completely different, and maybe even different than what you have experienced even most recently.
Talk about what those three legs are.
Right. So the first one is content. Are you going to pour your heart and your soul and be vulnerable onto that keyboard? Okay. That content has to be life-changing. If you're just regurgitating your sessions, if you're just regurgitating things that you teach over and over again, it's going to fall flat. You've got to really be dedicated to dump your guts onto the keyboard, to be vulnerable onto the keyboard, to really share what you mean by that. And then the other piece in your content is it's got to be full of story. It's actually what made me a pretty good author is I was a pretty good storyteller from the platform. And so being able to tell good story, we try to tell folks that your book should be, in each chapter, it should be 3/4 or 2/3 story and 1/3 what you're actually trying to get across, the teaching. And in that story should unfold all of the teaching that you're trying to include in that story. And then the next part of that stool, the next leg to that stool, is having world-changing front and back matter. Now, that might be a term you don't know, but front and back matter is everything from the cover, what you see on the face of the book, to the very first word of the very first chapter. And back matter is everything after the very last word of the very last chapter, including the back cover of the book. Now, what a lot of us as authors don't know is each one of the components of the front matter, the table of contents, the endorsements, the preface, the colophon page, every one of those things, all of those elements have a unique job. And every one of those unique jobs have to be written specifically to what the job is. And so you can't think like an author in the front matter. You can't think that way at all. You have to think more like, what is this job of this particular piece that I'm doing? The preface, for example, or the table of contents. Most of us, as an example, just think of the table of contents as, here's all the different chapters and here's the page numbers. But the table of contents is the second thing that people go to when they're deciding on buying your book or not, because they want to get a glimpse of what the book is about. And if your table of contents doesn't tell them that, it falls flat. It doesn't work. The back matter is what you're going to tell them what to do. So back on the back matter, you have to tell them about what you want them to do next, how they can find you on your web properties. You have to tell them about what other offerings that you have that are consistent and timeless, not the mastermind you're going to have next week, but what other books have you written and what other things that you have out there that would keep them engaged. Those pieces are critically important to the success of a book. The cover, especially a well-tested cover and title, will make all the difference to the success of your book. And then the third piece, and this is the piece that's lacking mostly in book publishing today, is marketing your book where your buyers will buy your book. Now, I'm about to say something that's controversial, but y'all know it's true. Bookstores are a thing of the past. I know it. Believe me, I know it. I love them too. I love going into a bookstore and perusing through them. I love sitting down, and having a cup of coffee and looking at the book. But that's not where people are buying books. People are buying books online. And if they're buying books online, why are they buying books online? Well, people buy books online because someone told them to. Now, think about that. If somebody walks up and says, man, Kenneth, I just read this book and it was amazing. Here, I got you a copy. You're more likely going to read that. If you've read an endorsement or if you've seen the author on the news, you're more likely going to buy that book. If they see it in their social media feed, if they see it everywhere they go on social media, they're more likely going to buy that book. You have to be engaged in an active campaign of marketing your book and your course, something we'll talk about a little bit later, but you have to be in an active campaign. You can't just throw it up on Amazon and hope that somebody finds it. It won't work. You have to actively market it. And that also, by the way, puts you in the book business. Also, marketing is one other piece to recognize is marketing is also excellent order fulfillment, customer service, all of those things. You may have written the best book in the world. It may blow everybody's mind, but if it took them a month to get it, all right, they're gonna put down 5 stars on the content, 1 star on the customer service, and so you're going to end up with a 3-star rating, and it will kill you. So believe it or not, marketing is actually excellent customer service as well.
Oh, I agree with that completely. We saw a lot of things change, though, even with fulfillment of books during COVID. I mean, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I always thought the whole book thing was interesting. But what are you seeing different today with marketing than, say, just a few years ago? I mean, I think obviously we know how much different it is 20 years ago when you remove social media from that equation. But with things like social media and with what you were talking about doing and, sort of ongoing and actively doing a campaign for your book, I think a lot of times in the past, people would think about blowing up something with a little bit of advertising at the day of book launch, and that was it. And now it seems to be a lot more of a sustained process over a much longer period of time to market a book and make it successful.
So it's not just how has book marketing changed from 20 years ago, it's how has it changed from last week.
Yeah.
The way marketing and how marketing is approached literally changes every week. And so it takes, honestly, it takes people who are involved in it constantly to stay up with the never ending changes of Meta and Google and now X, which used to be Twitter, and all of the other places that we market. So the truth is, the reality is that first you have to test your book and find its audience. So what we do, and this is pretty general. There's some minute changes in it, but this is how we go about it in a 20,000 foot level. Is we'll take a book and we'll test it on social media, and we'll test its image, actually the creatives that we're using, the videos that we're using, and the copy that we're using. And we do A/B tests and A/B tests. We call them fast tests to get a sense of what the buyer is interested, what's making them click, what's making them buy. And then once we hone that down and we figure out what creatives work, then we put it out and try to find the audience. Now, everybody pretty much thinks they know who's going to read their book, but the truth is, who buys your book is telling you who's going to read it. And so you have to test that market. You test intent, you test interests, you test demographics. You might think it's a book for women, but you might find out it's more of a book for young women, not just women. Or maybe you'll find out it does have a broader appeal than you anticipated. And once you build that audience to about 350 sales, now you have a group that you can kind of sink your teeth into. With those 350 sales, you can now go to the social media outlets and do lookalike audiences off of those 350 sales. So ask them to interrogate their entire database, come back and give you 1 million people that look like those 350. Then you take the top 1 or 2% and you begin to market to those, and you keep repeating that process over and over and over again. So when you got 1,000 sales, you repeat that process. When you got 5,000 sales, you repeat that process, and you just keep honing in on the people that are interested in that book. And by the way, those are the people that are interested in you as a speaker as well. If you've written great content, when they've read your book, they're already convinced to hire you as a speaker or hire you as a consultant because they've read your book, opposed to starting out with a sizzle reel and, hey, I'm great, and you gotta hire me for your event, and I only do, keynote speaking, all those things. You bypass all that because they've read your book. And by the way, if they've seen your course, that's even more important, because now they're interested in hiring you as a speaker.
Let's talk briefly then a little bit about the gap in publishing and where it is today. I think so many people sort of see it's almost a prison of two ideas. You've got Amazon and online purchasing here, and then you've got the traditional model of Barnes and Noble and Books A Million and all the other stores that are, as you said, sort of dying off. There's somewhere in the middle there, though, that's a sweet spot. It's too easy to call an Amazon bestseller a bestseller on Tuesdays at 4:00 in whatever niche down category it is. But there's somewhere in between that a lot of great books reside in if they can get to, but people always seem to aim one extreme or the other.
Yeah. So the difficulty is, well, first off, here's the problem with Amazon. It's a big problem. Now, I will be the first one to admit that Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla in the book selling world. You have to be on Amazon. I'm not suggesting ever to not be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. There's about 8 big bookstore retailers out there. You have to be on all of them. That's important. But the problem with that is when you sell a book, okay, and many of you know this, you have on your own website an image of your book and it says buy now. And when it clicks on it, it takes them right to the Amazon site. Here's the problem with that. Amazon collects all of the information on the buyer, the name, the address, the email, everything, collects all of that information, and it's gone forever. You don't know who bought your book. You just know that somebody bought your book, and 4 months later, you got a check for it, right? I mean, that's the truth. Same way with Barnes and Noble. They all keep your information proprietary. So when you go to sell another book, or even follow up with those folks and put them in your newsletter, or follow up with them to invite them to come hear you speak, or anything else, you don't know who it was. And then when you go to sell the next book, you got to start that whole process over again and just throw your book sales into a black hole, and you'll never know what happened. So what we do is we collect all of that data when we sell a book, and we turn it over to the author. So every month you get a list of who bought the book, every bit of data that we have on that buyer, except for their credit card. You have every other piece of data, their email, address, all of those things, what they bought, all of the product that they bought, then the entire piece. So that's just marketing 101, is to capture that information from your buyer so that you can resell them something else later. And once they become a fan, now I hear it all the time, Kenneth, I hear this all the time. Well, I have in the back of my book, my website, or a QR code that tells them how to reach me. Are you going to leave it up to them to get around to getting their phone out and doing the QR code? Or wouldn't it be better to have that proactively, that data? That's the problem with Amazon and the online wholesale retailers out there. The bookstores, I love bookstores, but COVID killed pretty much the last big group of independent bookstores. And now you've just got a few bookstores. We all know Barnes & Noble has gone in and out of business. Barnes & Noble, by the way, I should say in and out of bankruptcy, excuse me. And then they've just recently made a decision to go more retail gift items and less books. And all the Christian bookstores have closed, but just a small handful of them. Any of those chains, they've all closed. And this is why. The consumer would walk in the bookstore, they'd pull a book off the shelf that they'd be interested in, they'd look through it, they'd check it all out, and they'd reach in their pocket with their phone and they'd scan the barcode and buy it online. And then just put it back. It turned into a book showroom. I know that's heartbreaking, but the truth is the consumer has decided. So you have to figure out two things to market your book. You got to figure out, one, who will endorse your book and talk about your book and get it out there. That's the telling people to buy your book. And then having a place where they can easily go, seamlessly buy the book, upsell to your course, upsell to any other thing that you might have, bundle books and whatnot, and then drive traffic across that and keep testing it and tweaking it. Those are the things that we do that allows us to sell bunches and bunches of books and courses.
I don't know that I even did this 1,000 times, but I mean, I'm guilty of looking up a book on Amazon when I was at a Barnes and Noble. It would have been maybe $3 cheaper, and I'd order it on Amazon. Now, I didn't do that a lot. It would always thought it was interesting though that you have the book in your hand. It's the definition of convenience. You can buy it right there.
Yep.
But yet somebody will go save $2-3 and have it delivered in 2 days or whatever, and that fascinates me with the way people even go against the way we think about convenience a lot of times. But that's just,
and the truth is, I kind of criticize Barnes and Noble for this. At least my experience is you go to the register and I got to stand there for 20 minutes while they ask 400 questions from every buyer. Okay, what's your name? What's your email? How many children do you have? What's your FICO score? It's nuts. I just want to buy the book and leave. I don't want to do all of this. And that's probably the impatience I have inside of me from the modern world, where we used to be a lot more patient than we are today. But they don't make it very convenient. So, you can be looking at the book, check out the book, have a cup of coffee with the book, and then you put it back on the shelf and order it because it'll be there the next day from Amazon. And that's a tough thing to beat. And so I'm saying that to realize the world has changed the way they buy books, and you have to get on board with them.
Agreed.
Imagine a day filled with insights, strategies, and expertise guiding you through every crucial decision point to determine the best publishing path for you. Discover the purpose of your book, unravel the mysteries of traditional versus self-publishing models, and avoid the common pitfalls that would hold you back. Whether you're in print, ebooks, or audiobooks, we've got the roadmap for you. Find out more at leadershipauthorsummit.com.
So one of the concerning things, though, I mean, we talk about this all the time with shorter attention spans. But another concern that we've discussed is that younger people are not reading like they used to. So a lot of books that we think of with the model, also the people thinking through that lens are often 30 and over that bought books the traditional way. Now you've got people 30 and younger who aren't reading like they used to. So where are you working with authors for the future of what this long form content, where it needs to go? And what should speakers at least be thinking about as they start to build this out?
Yeah, so that's a beautiful question. So a couple of years ago, the book publishing world, it began at the London Book Fair, but the book publishing world started having a conversation with the realization that our demographics are showing that 29-year-olds and younger don't read. You could see it in the sales records, okay? It gets right to 29 and no one buys a book, okay? So we quit spending money in marketing to 29-year-olds because they don't buy a book. So the conversation began, well, why is that happening? And we talked for about a year, all the publishers did. And basically the conclusion was, well, we're going to just hope they grow out of it. Hope is not a plan, okay? The truth is that 29-year-olds are now today 31, and in a few short years, they're going to be 40 and they're going to be running the world. And hoping that they grow out of it is a nonsensical idea, because the truth is reading is instilled in children and they carry that through into adulthood. And so if they didn't read as a child, they're not going to read as an adult. And where they're getting their information is on screens. We all know that. But we went into looking into where they're getting their long form information. So not reels, not, little vignettes and even YouTube shows, but where are they getting their long-term form information? And the truth is they're getting it from courses, whether they find those courses on a source like YouTube or Vimeo, or they go to a place like Masterclass where they get their long form information. That's where they're getting their training. It dawned on me when my son had to change the alternator in his car. He didn't know how to do it, so he went out and watched a several series episode on YouTube on how to change the alternator on his car. That's where they're getting their long form information. Where guys like me who have gray hair, we don't even think to look to YouTube for an answer. They go to everything for it. So what we've been doing is converting our books, and we have about 2,200 books on our website. We've been converting our books into courses, but they're not courses what you think, like a course you would take for college or maybe a certification. It's one of us standing up in front of a dry erase board going, doing one of these. Instead, it's much more like what you're seeing me do right here, sitting in my studio, talking to the camera, communicating ideas. We add some theatrical pieces to it, music to it, B-roll to it, a few graphics to it, but we primarily put an engaging person in front of a camera and then edit it to make it more engaging. We keep those courses 20 minutes or less. We do, if it's a 10 chapter book, we do 10 episodes on the book and then a pre-episode and a post-episode. So you'll walk away with 12 chapters. Then we do 3 more episodes to leaders like corporate leaders or church leaders that we give them for free. And then we also use that time to cut about 30 reels and marketing pieces and whatnot, all within a day and a half in the studio. Then we go back and post-edit that, and we present it with a study guide or a discussion guide. So the course includes all the episodes, a study guide or a discussion guide, and then they can also add the reading book to it. So if they come in and press add to cart to buy the course, they immediately see an upsell and say, get the book. Don't forget to get, Kenneth's book. If they come in to buy the book and they press add to cart, it says, hey, don't forget to get the course, including a free study guide to go along with it. This will really take you further. Now, Kenneth, what was really cool about this is, especially for speakers, we found out is when they watched your course, they got to see a little mini audition of who you are and how you speak and how you present and the topics that you speak on. And now they're more likely to turn around and hire you as a speaker or as a consultant, come in and do a workshop, because they actually see who you are. It comes across authentic, comes across real, it comes across powerful. And that bridges that gap. We all use sizzle reels, and I have nothing against sizzle reels. I don't. I think they have their use, but let's face it, sizzle reels are promotional. Okay. Sizzle reels, I jokingly say a sizzle reel can make me look like a runway model. Okay. The problem is when you meet me, you'll be deeply disappointed that I'm not a runway model.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're meant to be promotional, but this is authenticity. This is, the real guts of what you're doing in a course like that. So it's a mini course. And one last thing is we price them between $58 and $97. Why? Okay, because I can hear you guys already screaming, that's too low. My information's worth much more than that. See, you're thinking about the stand-up deep teaching that you would do in a $1,000 or $1,500 or $5,000 course. We're talking about course light. We're talking about talking through the book and really just engaging some life into it. We're talking about people that won't read a book, watching a course, and then maybe reading the book, opposed to them not reading your book at all. That's the people that we're talking to. And if they go to buy your book at $19 and they press add to cart, and the next thing is don't forget to get his course or her course for, $1,500, they won't do it. It's too big of a leap. But if you say, hey, don't forget to get the course for $58, including a free study guide, they'll do it. 70% of the people that click and buy the book with Leadership Books buys the course. That's pretty good.
So one of the cool things that Leadership Books is also doing in conjunction with Influence is that you are having an author summit there in Denver as well. If you would tell us a little bit about that. It's coming up, I believe, August 3rd as well.
Yeah, on August 3rd, we're going to have a pre-conference event. So the idea here is you come in the day before, starts at 8:30 in the morning, come and have a little coffee with us. We start precisely at 9 o'clock. And I will walk you through, myself and my team will walk you through what book publishing looks like and what the real modern book publishing is like. Okay. We cover the course, the different styles like self-publishing and hybrid publishing and traditional publishing. We discuss marketing. We discuss all the different pieces it takes, the three-legged stool that I just mentioned, all of those things. We go deep into those so that you understand what it takes to successfully publish a book. No more of this stuff where you buy a book and you sell, 50 copies and 100 copies in the back of the room. But instead, you've got ongoing marketing, getting you out there constantly about promoting your book, promoting your course, and getting the exposure that you actually had desired from your book to start with. That's what we're going to do in that conference, in that summit. It's just one day. I'm going to buy you lunch. And we'll get to talk and ask lots of questions.
All right, let's do a quick recap then based on Mike's literary advice for success with your books. Make sure not to avoid these three components of the three-legged stool. Number one, content. Are you pouring your heart and soul into the keyboard with life-changing content full of story? Number two, make it world-changing front and back matter. Each element has a unique job with a specific purpose. And remember, market your book where your buyers will buy your book. You have to actively campaign this all the time. Without those three, you'll fall flat. Number two, the way marketing is changing, it's changing every week. The reality is that you have to find your audience. Remember to find your audience first. Number three, remember again that your audience is changing. We just talked about that quite a lot. But as your audience is changing, the way they consume books is different as well. Make certain that you start thinking about the course component to make certain that you are able to help leverage that audience with content that they not only want to read, but want to learn from and want to see in a course. Mike, I'm looking forward to seeing you and your team at Influence. Before we go write our own stories, any closing thoughts before we close the page on this chapter, at least, in this part of the show?
No, if you would like to learn more about how we go about publishing and just maybe learn that same online course approach that I was talking about, you can go to invisible to viral.com and sign up for my course on book publishing. It'll give you a good taste of how we go about doing things. Until then, I really look forward to seeing all of you at Influence. If you haven't thought about going, you need to think about it, because this is the conference of the year.
Absolutely. Well, friends, make sure to join us at speakernomics.com and let your voice be heard. Thank you to Leadership Books for sponsoring this episode. I'm Kenneth Kinney, your host of the National Speakers Association's podcast, Speakernomics, and this has been another fantastic episode of the show. Thank you, Mike, for sharing your story with NSA, and to everyone listening, thank you for the privilege of your time. And remember, Speakernomics is the podcast where you'll learn to speak, get paid, repeat.
Attention all professional speakers. Are you ready to elevate your career? Join us at Influence 2024, the premier event of the National Speakers Association, happening this August 3rd through the 6th at the Gaylord Rockies Resort in Denver, Colorado. Connect with industry leaders, master your craft, and discover cutting-edge strategies to grow your influence and your speaking business. Now, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this event is designed for you. Now, don't miss out on this transformative experience, and register now and be a part of something extraordinary. Register at influence24.nsaspeaker.org.